So let's read Psalm 56. But just before I do that, let me talk about the word trust. In knowing Jesus through the Psalms, we come to the whole issue of trust. In fact, the word for trust is a major theme in the Psalms. It's mentioned 39 times throughout the Psalms, more than in any other book in the Bible. Now, if you consider there are 150 Psalms, you might say 39 times? That's not huge. That's not a great percentage. But if you delve deeper, you can see that every time, in every psalm, if the word trust isn't specifically mentioned, it's implied. So it takes the psalmist from the lowest depths to the greatest heights. So now let's read the psalm. Psalm 56 is a wonderful example of going from despair to hope. Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride, many are attacking me. When I am afraid, and that's where Sean came in, I put my trust in you. This is my part, trust. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, in God whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? All day long they twist my words. All their schemes are for my ruin. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. Because of their wickedness, do not let them escape. In your anger, God, bring the nations down. Record my misery, list my tears on your scroll. Are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is for me, in God whose word I praise, in the Lord whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I will present my thank offerings to you. For you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. The start of the psalm, we know that the psalmist is in a bad way. My enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride, many are attacking me. All day long they twist my words. All their schemes are for my ruin. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. The previous psalm, Psalm 55, amplifies David's anguish. He says, my thoughts trouble me, and I am distraught. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. And then he goes on to say, if an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were raising himself against me, I could hide from him. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship as we walked with the throng at the house of God. Friends, could anything be worse than having people constantly pursuing you to kill you, twisting your words so as to discredit you, malign you, and attack your integrity? Have you ever had an experience like that? David felt misunderstood, misjudged, misrepresented. His words, motives, and intentions had been twisted into something never intended. What was more, among these people was the one who had been his closest friend, one whom he had trusted the most. That is the deepest and worst sense of betrayal. How do you ever trust again when you have been wronged like that? And I would dare say this morning, as we sit here, there would be people amongst us who have felt like that. When the person you have felt closest to, the person you have trusted the most, has put the knife in, and you felt betrayed and hurt and maligned. What David was experiencing here was not something light and trivial. It was not a petty betrayal enacted on someone who was oversensitive. What were your words, Jeff? Don't be a suki. Yeah, suki lala. David wasn't being a suki lala. It was very real betrayal. He wasn't oversensitive. He was being real. What he was feeling was deep and real. Yet in the middle of all this distress and anguish, David is able to say, "When I am afraid, I put my trust in you." So what is trust? Well, the word used in Hebrew has a number of meanings, including, here's just a few, and you'll be familiar with these: to depend on, to feel secure, to have full confidence in. Here's a tricky one: reckless abandon, feeling safe. Trust is faith in action. It is implicit belief in the one who is trustworthy. Faith, as Hebrews tells us, is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. It has the sense of casting off and throwing off fear, throwing off what comes against us with a particular target in mind. It has deliberate intent. Casting your cares is not something we do irresponsibly or carelessly, even though it says the word means reckless abandon. It's reckless in the sense that it doesn't question the one that you're casting off to. It doesn't question the integrity of the person you're trusting. Our cares are aimed strategically at a target, at one who will never let us down. Psalm 9:10 says, "Those who know your name trust in you, for you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you." Proverbs 18:10, "The name of the Lord is a fortified tower. The righteous run into it and are safe." Psalm 55:22, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." 1 Peter 5:7 says, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." Trust denotes a confident expectation. It also contrasts the folly of trusting any other type of security instead of relying on God alone. Psalm 33, see, take all the Psalms. They're all interrelated. "No king is saved by the size of his army. No warrior escapes by his great strength. A horse is a vain hope for deliverance. Despite all its great strength, it cannot save. But the eyes of the Lord are on those who fear him, on whose hope is in his unfailing love, to deliver them from death and keep them alive in famine. We wait in hope for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. In him our hearts rejoice, for we trust in his holy name. May your unfailing love be with us, Lord, even as we put our hope in you." Trust leaves no room for doubt. You have complete confidence that the one you trust will uphold you, will keep you safe. You can enter in with a reckless abandon. There are no maybes, no questions, no doubts, no what-ifs. Friends, in a world where the rules seem to change regularly and where nothing seems certain and steadfast, the whole issue of trust can seem foolhardy. Surely it is good to weigh up the options, to have a plan B. Surely that is wisdom. Surely trust and reckless abandon is at best naive and at worst dangerous and irresponsible. We could easily say with David, "Help, Lord, for the godly are no more. The faithful have vanished from among men. Everyone lies to his neighbour. Their flattering lips speak deception." So, should we just say, let's get real? Trust is an outmoded concept. However, we are told that trust is important for a healthy mental and emotional state. And let me add a disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist. But without trust, we become victims of fear and anxiety, and we are likely to demonstrate dysfunctional behaviours such as jealousy, anger, abuse, and unhealthy attachments. So what creates trust? Well, I'm told that there are 3 core drivers for trust. One is soundness of character or authenticity, wisdom, intuitive knowledge, understanding, and the third one is empathy or caring. People tend to trust you when they believe they are interacting with someone of good character, when they have faith in your wisdom, and when they feel that you care about them. The reality is that the only person we can trust unconditionally is God. So why is God trustworthy? Is he of honest character? Totally. Hebrews 6:18 tells us it is impossible for God to lie. When he wants to make a promise, he swears by himself, since there was no one greater for him to swear by. He is totally authentic. He cannot be otherwise. It's embedded in his name. Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. Emmanuel, God with us. Those who know your name will trust in you, for you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you. Here's some other names for Jesus. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. He's the author and perfecter of our faith. He is blameless. He is faithful. He's true. He's beginning and the end. He's the first and the last. He's mighty God. He's the righteous judge. He's the ruler of God's creation. He is truth. Those who know your name will trust in you. It's a wonderful name. I think we sang Name Above All Names this morning, and that's what it is. The words of the Lord, and is he wise? Absolutely. All wisdom is with him. He's the giver of wisdom, as we know from the story of King Solomon. Some other scriptures that talk about that. The words of the Lord are flawless, like silver refined in a furnace of clay, purified 7 times. Luke 2:46-47, when Jesus was in the temple, when he was 12 years old. After 3 days, his parents found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions, and everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and at his answers. And a bit later in Luke, all spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. Truly, he is wise. Does he have our best interests at heart? Well, totally. He loves us with the greatest love ever known. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lays down his life for another. His plans and purposes are for our good, to give us a hope and a future, as Jeremiah 29:11 tells us. Romans 8 tells us there is nothing that can separate us from the love of God. Whatever the situation, whatever our circumstances, however bleak the future may appear to be, we can trust with absolute assurance in the faithfulness, wisdom, and love of God. So when do we trust? At all times, particularly when we feel oppressed, in times of trouble, when we feel persecuted, when we are afraid. And the fruit of trust is peace, freedom from worry, and joy. Back in 2015, that's a while ago, I received the most practical lesson in trust. We went on a family holiday. to Bali. Wouldn't you expect to find a lesson in trust in Bali? Well, I have to say, I wasn't expecting that. And we had 3 generations in this family holiday. 3 olds. We're called the olds in the family. Then there was the middle generation, and then there was the younger generation. And when you're going to Bali, the middle generation think that they know a lot. They've been to Bali before. They've got friends who've been there. So they did their reconnaissance and they found out that there was this wonderful activity we should do as a family. It was called a treetop adventure. I heard treetop. I didn't hear adventure. We got on a bus and we went up the mountain and around and around and around till we got to the top. And I thought, this is going to be a lovely walk through the treetops. I was wrong. Can we have a picture? Can you tell what's happened? This wasn't a lovely, relaxing walk through the treetops. It was a treetop adventure. And there were different levels. One for the little ones, one for the olds, and then one for the middle generation who was so clever and so adventurous. But we had to be harnessed up. Can you see us harnessed up there? And then we had to have a little practical lesson down on the ground of how it all worked so we would know what to do. Well, there were only 3 olds of us, and 2 of the olds were very adventurous. Thanks, Lisa. Can we change to the next slide? Right. So 2 are going wobble, 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 and 2 are going fly through the air, and one is the one on that side is now climbing down from having finished a very adventurous trip through. And I, being the 3rd old, decided that I could also do this. So I got up on that level. It was the basic level for olds, okay? It was a treetop adventure still. And there came a point where partway through that little routine, you could climb down. And I got to that point, which was earlier than these photos, and I climbed down because I was the Suki Lala. And I got down and I watched the younger ones on a much lower level are scooting through and then going back again and again and again. And the next generation were flying along on ropes, and these 2 were just killing it. They were amazing. And I thought, you know what, Lorraine? If they can do it, so can you. Don't be a Suki Lala. Get up and do it. So I got up and I got I went along the ropes like Lynn is going along there. I'm not where Rod is, climbing down. I went past the one point where I could get down, and I was so proud of myself. But then I came, and I'm going to jump to the next slide now, and this actually is a video, but I'm sorry it doesn't work. It did work at home, but it's not working now, so I need to check because my eyesight can't see what that shows. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I got to that point where Rod is right there, and I have to tell you, if Suki Lala was what I was before, I was that 3, 4, 20 times over. I absolutely froze. I stood on that ledge, and I thought, I can't do it. I cannot move. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I started to picture in my mind, they're going to have to get a cherry picker to get me down. I cannot do this. I really cannot do this. And because I stood there for so long, I then had a queue of people behind me. It was very embarrassing. And then a dear young woman who was lined up, the next one in the queue behind me, who could have torn me to shreds. She would have been justified to do that. She said to me, to do something that I can see Rod is about to do on that ledge. She said, sit down. And I sat down. I could manage to go from a standing position to sitting down. I sat down, and what I discovered, I have to tell you one other thing. This is the most important thing. No, I nearly forgot. Why I couldn't go off that ledge was, the next step was there was nothing under my feet. I had to hang on up the top. I had to hang on to a rope, and it was going to fling me through the air to the other end. I think you might call it a flying fox. The one and only time in my life I've been on a flying fox, if that's what it was. And the other thing I have to tell you about myself is I have absolutely zero, zilch upper body strength. I never have. As a child, I could never do handstands. I could never do monkey bars. No upper body strength at all. And I looked at that and I thought, there is no way I'm going to be able to hang on to that rope. The minute I get off this ledge, I will plummet to the ground. That's a dead certainty. But this dear young woman said to me, she didn't know my name, she said very kindly, very gently, I'm still in awe of her patience and understanding. She said, sit down. So I sat down, and I found that when I sat down, I could just easily slide off that ledge. And the moment I did, can you tell me what happened? Did I plummet to the ground? No. What? And I was in awe. I felt so secure, absolutely secure. And what I realized was the harness was holding me up. Absolutely. There was no wobbling. I just went zoom through the air and got to the other side. I learnt 2 lessons about trust in that situation. One of them came to me immediately, but the first one, it's taken me a little while to learn this one. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. The first lesson in trust is to sit down in the presence of God. Take time to sit in the presence of God. What did you say last week, Janie? You had that scripture from Isaiah that you looked at every day, took time to sit in the presence of God, to absorb his words into your heart. That is so important. I'm sure I've got some scriptures here. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in activity, isn't it? In our world, we value activity. I know there was a time where if I could recount at the end of a weekend all the things I'd achieved, I felt so good. But the important lesson before the activity, and activity is good, absolutely good. I love people who can do a lot, achieve a lot. But before we launch into it, we need to be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. It says too, be still and know that I am God. And we've already ascertained it through this series that whatever applies when we talk about the Father, God, in the Psalms also applies to Jesus, who is the visible indication, the visible image of the invisible God. in the New Testament. Jesus spoke of the need to be still. Remember Mary and Martha? And I think the words are coming up here. And I won't read the first part. We'll just know Martha complained to Jesus about her sister Mary, who chose to be still and sit at Jesus' feet, while Martha stood up and engaged in all the meal preparations. What were Jesus' words? Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Friends, if you need to learn to trust, take time to sit at Jesus' feet. The second lesson I learnt from my Bali experience was this. When I slid off the ledge, I discovered that my inability to hold on because of my complete lack of upper body strength was a non-issue. My weakness was irrelevant. What held me up was the harness. I was totally secure, and what immediately came to my mind were the words of Deuteronomy 33:27. The eternal God is your refuge, and I'm sure you could finish this with me. Underneath are the everlasting arms. His arms are the harness that hold us up. The secret to trust is to take time to sit in the presence of God. When fear overtakes you, still your heart with the scripture. Go on a journey with the psalmist and find that he will hold you up. He is your support. He's totally trustworthy. Few final points. Trust is born out of love. The greater our love for Jesus, the more we will trust him. Number 2, trust opens us up to gratitude and praise, certainly what the psalmist discovered. Number 3, trust demonstrates humility. It shows our recognition that we need God, that we are not self-sufficient. Point number 4, trust is the pivotal point of all the Psalms on the journey from despair to hope, anxiety, anguish to praise. On one side, you have all the negative experiences, fear, betrayal, being pursued by enemies, anxiety, abandonment, isolation, hunger, thirst, sickness, sorrow, guilt, weakness. But then you have the conduit. And I always think, I don't know why I do this. I go back to my school days. What's that saying about me? I won't tell you. I know what it says. Sitting in a maths class with the teacher, trying to explain to us the rate of flow through a tube, the rate of water flowing through a tube, and how we could calculate that mathematically. And so this is the image that comes to my mind. I see this channel of trust. Water, muddy water on one side, of fear, all that sort of thing, flowing through, and it comes out pure and clean with peace, connection, love, joy, strength, health, satisfaction, completeness. Friends, today, let us encourage one another in a journey of trust. Let this be our testimony. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, in God whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? Friends, whatever you are going through today or in the days ahead, I pray that you will know you are being carried in the arms of Jesus. The everlasting arms are there, and he will support you. He will hold you up. He will never let you down. Let's just pray.